Somewhere in a sealed cave, 3,000 years ago, a strand of human hair absorbed a secret no-written record preserved. When scientists tested it, they found psychoactive compounds. Not rumor, not mythology, but chemistry trapped inside a body from the Bronze Age. That discovery did not reveal the beginning of drug use. It revealed how difficult the beginning is to see. Plants decay. Smoke vanishes. Containers break. Most altered states leave no fossil, no skeleton, and no obvious archaeological signature. So every surviving trace is probably the edge of a much older tradition, one already practiced, repeated, and understood before evidence captured it. The deeper question is not simply when humans discovered drugs. It is why consciousness seems driven to alter itself. Humans are not alone in that impulse. Across nature, animals deliberately seek plants, fungi, toxins, and fermented fruit that change behavior. Reindeer consume psychoactive mushrooms. Cats respond intensely to catnip. Some primates seek fermented fruit. Wallabies raid fields of opium poppies. Dolphins have even been observed handling pufferfish carefully, receiving small doses of toxin without swallowing enough to die. These behaviors suggest intoxication is not always a human invention. It may emerge wherever a nervous system can recognize altered sensation. Researcher Ronald Siegel argued that intoxication behaves almost like a biological drive, alongside hunger, thirst, and reproduction. That idea remains debated, but it changes the frame. Ancient drug use may not have begun as rebellion. It may have begun as instinct. Imagine early foragers testing berries, roots, bark, sap, fungi, and leaves while learning which substances healed, poisoned, energized, or transformed perception. Most experiments would have disappeared with the people who performed them. A few became knowledge. Fewer still became ritual. The oldest direct clues appear thousands of years ago, but the human behavior behind them was probably already ancient. In Central Asia, archaeologists found cannabis burned in wooden vessels at a burial site, apparently producing psychoactive smoke during funerary ceremonies. The scene matters. Fire, music, grief, smoke, and a community attempting to cross the emotional distance between the living and the dead. On Menorca, inside the cave of Es Carrots, researchers found human hair sealed within containers made from antler and wood. Chemical analysis detected atropine, scopolamine, and ephedrine, compounds associated with nightshade plants and powerful changes in perception. The repeated pattern in the hair suggested more than a single experiment. Someone had consumed these substances over an extended period. That person may have been a ritual specialist, healer, or mediator whose altered state served the entire community. In the Americas, ancient peyote specimens show that mescaline-containing cactus was used thousands of years ago. Mushroom imagery from Mesoamerica and ritual bundles from South America point to equally sophisticated relationships with Psilocybin and Ayahuasca traditions. Ayahuasca is especially remarkable because its effects depend on combining different plants through precise preparation. Someone had to discover not only which plants mattered, but how they interacted, how long to prepare them, and when to administer them. Indigenous traditions sometimes say the plants taught humans. Science cannot test that explanation, but the knowledge itself remains extraordinary. Across continents, one pattern appears again and again. Ancient psychoactive use was usually not casual, private, or merely recreational. It was controlled by ceremony. It appeared at funerals, initiations, healings, divination rites, and encounters with ancestors or gods. Separate cultures repeatedly treated altered consciousness as a threshold, a temporary passage beyond the ordinary limits of the waking mind. A strict materialist can call these experiences hallucinations produced by chemistry. Ancient participants would have described them as contact. The interpretation changes, but the neurological event remains. A plant could make reality feel wider, stranger, and more meaningful than before. That may help explain why some anthropologists connect psychedelics with the earliest development of religion. Perhaps spirits and afterlives were not invented only through abstract thought. Perhaps they were also encountered inside altered states. A shaman returns from a vision and insists another world exists. The group cannot see it, but they can hear the certainty in the voice. Repeated across generations, such experiences could become myths, cosmologies, priesthoods, taboos, and sacred explanations for death. But psychedelics were only one branch of the story. The most successful psychoactive substance in human history was fermentation. At Jiahu in ancient China, chemical residues show people produced a fermented mixture of rice, honey, and fruit around 9,000 years ago. At Reykjavik Cave, hunter-gatherers appear to have brewed grain-based drinks roughly 13,000 years ago, before full agricultural life. That discovery creates a provocative possibility. Alcohol may not have followed settled civilization. It may have helped gather people into it. Feasts required grain, storage, vessels, labor, and cooperation. A temporary ritual drink could create permanent social consequences. This is the foundation of the beer before bread hypothesis. Perhaps some early cultivation was motivated partly by the desire for reliable fermentation. It is not proven, and agriculture had many causes. But intoxicants were clearly entangled with ritual, exchange, and social organization. Then comes the most controversial idea of all, the stoned ape hypothesis proposed by Terence McKenna. McKenna imagined early hominins following grazing animals and encountering psilocybin mushrooms growing in dung across African grasslands. He suggested repeated mushroom use improved perception, creativity, social bonding, and eventually language, accelerating the emergence of human consciousness. The hypothesis is not accepted as established science. There is no direct fossil evidence, and drug experiences are not simply inherited as genetic upgrades. Yet the idea survives because psilocybin genuinely affects neuroplasticity, cognitive flexibility, emotional processing, and the formation of unusual associations. That does not prove mushrooms created humanity. It does suggest psychoactive fungi could have influenced behavior, culture, or learning in meaningful ways. The distinction matters. A weak hypothesis can still point toward a strong question. How much did altered consciousness shape human development? By the first cities, psychoactive knowledge had become organized. In Mesopotamia, opium poppies were cultivated and associated with medicine and pleasure. In Egypt, cannabis, fermented drinks, and blue lotus appeared within medical, religious, and funerary traditions. Some scholars suggest blue lotus was infused into wine, creating a mild psychoactive preparation repeatedly represented in Egyptian art. In Greece, the Eleusinian mysteries centered on a secret initiation and a drink called kykeon. Initiates described overwhelming visions, encounters with death, and experiences that seemed more real than ordinary life. Some evidence has linked ritual grain preparations to ergot fungi, which contain compounds related to later psychedelic chemistry. The exact recipe remains uncertain, but the possibility forces a strange conclusion. Altered states may have influenced major philosophical traditions. Ancient users were not biologically primitive. Their brains carried the same capacities for terror, wonder, grief, imagination, and transcendence as ours. They developed dosages, preparation methods, ceremonial rules, specialized roles, and cultural frameworks for experiences that could be dangerous or overwhelming. In effect, they practiced forms of pharmacology and psychology long before either discipline had a name. Modern medicine is now revisiting some of the same substances under controlled conditions. Psilocybin is being studied for severe depression. MDMA-assisted therapy has shown promise for post-traumatic stress. Ketamine can rapidly interrupt suicidal thinking. These treatments are not identical to ancient rituals, but the comparison is difficult to ignore. Modern laboratories isolate molecules and measure outcomes. Ancient traditions surrounded those molecules with preparation, meaning, community, and guidance. Both approaches recognize the same fact. Changing consciousness can sometimes change suffering, identity, memory, and behavior. So when did ancient humans begin taking drugs? Almost certainly before the oldest evidence that has survived. The archaeological record gives us dates for preserved hair, burned seeds, cactus buttons, residues, vessels, and ritual bundles. But it cannot date the first curious hand that lifted an unfamiliar mushroom, tasted fermented fruit, or brewed leaves beside a fire. What we can say is that the desire to alter consciousness is ancient, widespread, and deeply connected to religion, healing, grief, and social life. Humans did not merely discover intoxicants. They built systems around them, controlled them, feared them, worshipped them, and learned from them. From a Bronze Age cave to an Amazonian brew, from ancient beer to secret Greek ceremonies, the same question keeps returning. What happens when the mind temporarily escapes its ordinary boundaries? And why have humans always been willing to follow it?